The title of this talk is Economic Impact of a School-Age Population Loss on Rhode Island's Economy. This has nothing to do with engineering or the construction, but in a broadly defined benefits to the states, and then we can talk about the demographic changes in Rhode Island, okay, and can generate some the benefits, and if we control, if we have some numbers on the loss of the population. So Edinaldo Tebaldi and I completed this project, and the outcomes, the findings of this project was reported to Governor recently. Well, in this project, and we did two things. And the first thing is about the economies of scale. And economies of scale is about the total cost. So when the school system is built, and it needs fixed cost and the variable costs. So fixed cost is something like the school, the buildings or infrastructure. So in that case, and no matter how many students are attending, and once a school is built, and that fixed cost is there. So, and we spend $100,000 to build a structure, but there are only 10 students. So in this case, well, and average fixed cost will be that high. So to the extent that, and we accept more students, and then average fixed cost will decline. But variable cost rises, and with more students enrolling. So to accommodate more students, and we need to hire the more teachers, and we need to have some other relevant variable costs. So when the school size becomes bigger and bigger, and we have 3 stages of total cost. So up to a certain point, total cost declines, and it's kind of stagnating. And when the school size becomes too big, and then the total cost goes up. So this is all about the economies of scale, or this economies of scale. So we collect the data and from the Rhode Island Department of Education, and also available state data set. And we wanted to see if whether there is this economies of scale or economies of scale in Rhode Island. So that's one regression we did. And also, we did some simulation. And this simulation is dealing with declining Rhode Island population in general. Also, school age population is also declining. So when if we are able to maintain the school age population and at the level when it was peak, then how much more can we gain in terms of the state benefits? So these are two questions we address in this the project. So here, and this study provides an empirical analysis of economic implications of the changes in the school age population across cities and towns in Rhode Island. So we conducted empirical analysis of the economic impacts of spending among households with school-age children on economic activities in Rhode Island. So when people spend on their children, and that spending becomes other people's income, so going through what we call multiplier effect, and then the actual impact on the economy, Rhode Island economy, will be a lot bigger. So two, and we also examined how the decline in the students' population during the 2000s affected the cost structure of K-12 public education services and economic activity in Rhode Island. And we also examined the average cost function. So this is about the economies of scale, or this economies of scale. And we examined the average cost function for Rhode Island's public school over time and across the school districts. And are there economies of scale in public schools in Rhode Island? Yes, and we found the presence of that. And our Rhode Island school district too small? Well, and we would say yes. And is it more costly to cities and towns to educate children with low to moderate income families? And we have some mixed results on that. So some facts. Well, in Rhode Island, the number of students enrolled in public elementary and secondary school dropped from 159,375 in 2003 to the 142,300 in 2011, a decrease of 10.7%. So general population is declining too. So the reduction in demand for educational services was followed by a significant increase in average current expenditures per students enrolled in K-12 public school in the state. So here, and methodology you adapted. So because we are running a regression, and the data set was collected from the Center for National Education Statistics, and also the Center for Nutrition Policy and Promotion at the USDA. And also we utilized the data sets available in Rhode Island Department of Education. So for regression, to find the presence or absence of economies of scale, and we applied panel data regression analysis and the fixed effect model. And to simulate the potential benefits, okay, and that could be obtained. And if we maintain the state population level or students level at the peak, and we utilized the InPlan. This is a software. And this is an economic analysis tool that takes data from multiple government sources and employs an estimation method based on industry accounts or input-output matrix that allows using multipliers to make an estimation of how changes in income spending impact the total local economy. So initial impact on children, okay, and that becomes the income of another person, and that this money will be spent over and over again. So the actual impact on the economy will be much bigger than the initial spending on children. So, and we utilized InPlan and to simulate this. So I want to present result first about the simulation. So according to our estimates, and the direct impact is, as of a 2013 level, and 3.2 billion total spending on students, okay, and the K-12 students. And this can be break down, and the small segments. So $1.04 billion in housing, and the $972 million for education, childcare, and health, and $620 million in retail, and also transportation and other small components. So total impacts, well, after going through these multiply effects, and will create $4.2 billion in output across Rhode Island's economy. And that's as big as 8% of a state economy, state GDP. So this is not negligible, and this is quite a sum. And also, this supports the 45,793 and the full-time equivalent jobs. So it creates jobs. And also generates $1.7 million in income of households. Well, when people make money, and the state can expect more tax revenue, states and the local cities and towns. So $179.9 million in taxes in commercial and industrial taxes, and also $40 million in household taxes and fees for local and state governments. So this is very good. And now, and the loss of a school-age population. So, let's not talk about the expenditure. So that's the population trend in Rhode Island from 2000 to 2013. And the number peaked at around 2003 to 2004, and it's been declining. So currently, and it's the level of Rhode Island population is the level that prevailed in 2000. So when population shrink, and we expect not comparable, but comparable decline in school-age population too. So we have some stories. Well, and out of the 39 cities and towns, and 20, so here, and taking the peak of a population of 2013 as a reference, 26 out of 39 cities and towns lost population in Rhode Island from 2003 to 2013. So let's take a look at this. So we have changes in population by cities and towns 2000 to 2013. And we don't have 39 the districts here, and because, well, and we need so some cities and towns, and the data set is not available. So this is what we have. And also, and depending on the cities and towns, and the educational cost is quite different. And surprisingly, and the Central Falls, the per pupil educational cost is the highest. So that is somewhat related to the poverty rates, and also the reduced lunch or the supported lunch, that kind of the things play a role there. Okay, so this is very interesting. And figure 4 shows enrollment and expenditure per pupil, Rhode Island in 1995 and 2011. So this yellow one is enrollment in public schools. So it's declining. and also current expenditures per pupil is rising. So this means that, well, even before running this regression, well, the school was already built, the fixed the structures are there, but to the extent that the number of students enrolled there is declining, and obviously, and the per person, the fixed cost will be becoming better, be higher and higher. So we have this kind of a the very contrasting the relationship. So here, now, and loss of 14.3% of a Rhode Island school-age population from 2000 to 2013. So meant a reduction in GDP by $646 million. So because of this decline from 2000 to 2013, and according to our simulation, and then the loss is approximately 1.2% of the stated GDP. And earnings by $262 million, and employment by 7,045 full-time equivalent jobs. And child rearing spending, $490 million, and commercial industry tax revenue declined this much, and personal income and property taxes declined this much. So, and this is the graphical presentation of economies of scale in schooling. So on the horizontal axis, the school size becomes bigger and bigger, okay, and the more students, and the vertical axis, and we have the average expenditure per pupil. So initially, we have economies of scale. So the more students means that, and per student, fixed cost will decline. But after going through the flat area, the phase, and the more students and will require another building, that means a huge the impact on the system financially. So, and this compares the average current expenditure per pupil and the school size in 2011 and 2001. So this brown the bar indicates 2011 numbers, and the blue bar indicates 2001 numbers. So in general, when you kind of make a line out of this, and then that's kind of declining and then going up. So graphically, and then we can see the economies of scale and these economies of scale. So we are running out of time already. So here is the econometric model. And the dependent variable is the average cost, and we have Q, independent variables, measure of output of educational outcomes, and we have input prices, and also vector variables that measures those attributes of a school districts that influence educational cost. So for example, poverty rate, and students with special needs, and the individualized education program. And also to the extent that a district includes the foreign-born the students, and their the inadequate the command of English, okay, requires the remedial the English classes. So that all the counts. So to make a long story short, and that's the regression output. So as we can see here, well, we found the presence of economies of scale, and also the most important the factors that raises the total cost is the teacher's salary, and the real the administrative salaries per pupil. And also we didn't use poverty rate, and instead to be more relevant in this context, and we use a proxy variable, which is percent of students who are eligible for free and reduced price lunch. So there is the direct relationship between the proportion of students who are receiving the free or reduced lunch and the school cost. So results, strong evidence of economies of scale in public school in Rhode Island. So regardless of socioeconomic factors, the per pupil cost of a K-12 public education in this state is higher in the small school districts than in larger school districts. 2, the size of this state's school district is currently economically inefficient. And by adding more students, and that we can actually do better in terms of saving money. And increasing the size of the students' population would reduce, per pupil cost of K-12 education services. So all in all, and the finding the implication is that, and that we have a good facilities, such as roads, but we are not utilizing all these nice educational facilities, and we can accommodate more, okay, without spending more cost. And now, and discussion and implications. And spending among households with a child rearing has a significant impact on economic activity in Rhode Island. And attracting families with the children would increase the student population and contribute to reduce average cost per pupil via efficiency gains from economies of scale in educational services. So the attracting population is very important. And Mike Hoff and I did another the project last year, and this is not about education, but the viability of the Rhode Island economy. And squeezing by Connecticut and Massachusetts. And the people, well, they live in Rhode Island, but then they commute work in Boston or they go the Connecticut. So what is the best way to attract? What are the policy, the suggestions to attract more people so that their children, their sons and daughters go to school in Rhode Island? Well, and we don't know. We don't know. So probably, and that's the kind of questions, and we, the engineers and economists, should collaborate to answer. So the cost and the benefits of educating children are disproportionately biased in favor of state government, and again, local cities and towns, which means that, more students attending school, and obviously there's got to be some spending. So spending means more tax revenues. But when it comes to the split between state revenue and cities and towns revenue, and it's not huge, but those the tax revenues and favors state. But the education cost usually falls onto cities and towns' responsibility. So our suggestion, the recommendation is that, we should be able to more precisely calculate the state and the revenue. So share of state revenue and the cities and town revenue, so that the city and towns will be able to receive more the state aids. So this way, this will be one way to attract more population, more students from elsewhere. So we can go on and on and on, but if you're interested, I'll be happy to share this paper, and we have all these tables, but I don't think I have enough time to talk about that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.